Empire of One was a love letter to my dad. I hide who he is. I hide his identity. He's immortal, but he wants to die. Irish mythology so heroes of Irish lore versus an alien race invading to take over the world in present day. All in first person, which was tough.
So let's move on to Empire of One.
Okay, Empire of One. Yeah. Now that is my fantasy sci-fi genre. I didn't want to do a sci-fi book by itself because I don't think at this point in my career, I don't think I'm a strong enough writer to just do sci-fi because sci-fi is a discipline that you really gotta, I don't know, you really gotta be into it. And I like sci-fi, but I'm not like obsessed with it, right? And I think you really have to really be true to your readers when they're just pure sci-fi. But I like sci-fi and fantasy. I love, but I was like, ooh, fantasy's great, but you do get locked into a certain type of story. So I wanted some freedom. So I said, well, what if I mix them together? How would I do that? And when I was thinking about it, I thought of my dad, who used to tell me a lot of old Irish mythology stories when I was a kid. And I always got a kick out of it because he would always say, he talked about how oral tradition in Ireland was a really big thing, and they didn't like in the early day, like early days, it was all verbal and nothing was written down. And then, when a lot of the monks came over, the Christian monks, they started to write all the stories down. But Dad was always adamant. He was like, but you know what? They would change the stories a little bit to give them a little bit of a Christian message or a Christian bent. So I'm going to tell you the stories without that. Now, whether he was just codding me or, he was being truthful, I don't care. It was a unique thing that he used to say to me, right? And it would make me listen more, right?
Right.
So Empire of One was kind of a love letter to my dad because I I was missing him a lot when I started writing Empire of One because he was a big part of my life. And so I wanted to do something to honor him. And that's why when you open the page, the first page of Empire of One, it says for my dad. It's just, it's the first thing out of my mouth, right? Um, but I wanted to do it with layers. So the main character, I hide who he is. I hide his identity. So this is a two-book plan, and Empire of One is the first book, and I haven't started the other one yet because it hasn't uh Empire of One hasn't got the exposure I wanted to get to the where I want to do the second one yet. So, but I wanted there to be a mystery to who this person. He's an immortal character, and you see his life span over like thousands of years, and he has all these different identities to cope. And so we jump from you know uh, pre. Uh, uh, pre-Christian Ireland, like earlier, like with the Furbolgs, and if you know Irish mythology, you go okay. So it's like the Book of Invasions, basically in Ireland's earliest time, and he comes there, and we introduce him as a Furbolg, but he's not. He actually comes from earlier, but you don't know where he comes from. So I'm I'm trying to give hints to who he is, and I want my readers to try to guess because I'll reveal it in the second book at the very end who he originally is. But
Ah,
right now, you think he's just a furbolg, which is a former slave that escaped that were taken from Ireland to Greece. And they were enslaved for 300 years, and they escaped. They went back to Ireland, and then they had to fight, and they had to fight a bunch of different, that's why it's called the Book of Invasions. Ireland had a lot of battles, and a lot of different races used to land, take over, sit for hundreds of years, and then a new race would come in and battle them and crush them and then take over. And it was like a big part of Irish mythology. So I incorporated all that, but I had my unique character, which is not in any of Irish mythology. I kept him separate, but everything's told from his point of view. It's in first person, the whole book. So it's all in my character's eyes. Like you see everything he sees only. So, which I found really hard to write because when you're in first person, you can't have offshoot scenes because he's not there. So how can you tell the story?
right.
because he doesn't know. So it was all first person. So that was interesting, frustrating, and exciting all at the same time. Yeah, it was fun because I had to do a lot of research with the Book of Invasions just to make sure I got a lot of things correct. And every time I had to research a story that my dad used to tell me, I used to be all kind of warm and fuzzy because I was like, oh yeah, I remember dad told me that one, you
Oh,
know.
that's
So
nice.
so it was nice. And then I got to string it together, and then I had to add in the sci-fi component. So I was like, how am I going to do that? And then that's when I came up with Irish mythology. So heroes of Irish lore versus an alien race invading to take over the world in present day. How am I going to do that? And that's and Empire One was born, right? So
So let me ask you this regarding the mythological storytelling.
yeah.
Why do you think it still speaks so powerfully to a world like modern readers living in such a tech-driven world?
Well, I think because there's always someone that can explain the tech to you. They can explain where it came from, why it works, how it works, when it works, why it doesn't work, why it stopped working.
Right.
And I think mythology, there is there's a mysterious component to it that anything goes. And I think when we have an anything goes component, your mind can just then be totally open. Because if you have, why does a pen work? Someone can explain how a pen works, how the ink comes out, why the roller does what it does, and they can explain it to you to the finest point. And then after they do that, there's nowhere else to go,
Okay.
right? And I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm just saying that's what it is. But when you deal with fantasy, there's no you don't have any limits.
Right.
There's a freedom there. As a writer, it's fantasy. You can do anything. You painted your characters into a corner? No, not in fantasy. You can get them out. You just got to be creative, but you can get them out, you know? I mean, there's going to be a way to do it because it's fantasy. You can change the rules. You can adapt. You can, like, and I think that's why a lot of people love writing fantasy because there's no rules.
Right.
There's a freedom there. And yeah, I mean, a lot of times, it gets abused and you're asking people maybe to walk into a world that are like, oh, it's just too much. And you might, lose a few that way. But other than that, I think it's just the freedom of just being, there's no limits. And I think that's why I think in our modern day world with, like you said, with all the technology, I think people yearn for that unknown freedom, that potential, unlimited potential of anything goes. Because, in this day and age, there's limits. And limits, I think now are probably even more prevalent than they've ever been. Our limits
Yeah.
on this, on how to go here, or do this, that, or limits on what happens if, there's a danger to the populace, the limits on where you can go or who it's crazy. So I think maybe people are feeling a little enclosed nowadays, and fantasy even opens it up even more. I mean, that's just
Right.
my own opinion. I'm not saying I'm right or I'm wrong, but that's
Well,
what I
it
look at.
makes sense.
Yeah.
It
So,
does. And I think it's that, it's that brain escape or it's that escape that you can just, even if it's just while you're reading, you know,
yeah,
instead of worrying about everything that's going on around your life or what you have to get done or what you should have
yeah,
done or what you shouldn't do or
yeah.
whatever it is that you have to get done, it's when you're reading, it's that whole escape.
It's escapism. It totally is. I mean, I had somebody ask me about and I know we're talking about these three books, but just they were asking about Shooter and why I don't do the CSI and or the true crime. And I just said, you know what? I'm a storyteller and I want to take you away from real life because
Yeah.
we're living it. I am one of those people that I live real life and the trials and tribulations of real life every day. Why do I want to open a book and read more of that?
Yeah.
I want to I want to I myself, again, personal opinion, but I want to open a book and go to a world that doesn't have any of this crap. That's what I want to
Yes.
do. And that's why I'm the type of writer I am. And they understood. but it was an honest question, and I'd have no problem answering when people ask me that because I get that question a lot. But I'm just like, we got enough realism. If you want realism, that's why you're a true crime reader. That's all the power to you. But if you come to Thaine Chase, you're getting fiction, and you're getting an escape to some other place, and hopefully you enjoy the ride while you're there. That's all I can do for you, right? So yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. And that's Empire of One. I mean, that's. I mean, I had fun writing it. I had fun with the aliens. I had to make up an alien race, and I had to make up their look, and I had to, and that was fun because it was like, oh, what are they going to look like? And it made me think of things I never thought, and then I was like, okay, and then I got to interact, and then jumping from present day back to my main character's life 400 years ago, present day back to 3,000 years prior, like, and it was a lot of jumping around, and I didn't want to confuse my reader, and I used to get a lot of people writing me that read Empire of One, and the biggest kudos I got was how I jumped around so many different time zones and time frames and time periods, and I didn't lose anyone. And they actually said that I never felt lost. And that, again, as a writer, you're like, yes, because you could frustrate people by doing that. If you jump around too much, they eventually will just go, you know what? I can't read this you know. But I think I'm lucky because I think I got that from my screenwriting because it's a huge part of screenwriting, the jumping around. Um, and so I think for my screenwriting, my movie world and TV world, I think that's benefited me. That's been a strength of mine to be able to jump around seamlessly because of the scripts, because they're so different when you write a script as compared to a novel. It's so different, right? So, but yeah, Empire One is probably the most challenging book in the fact that it's my longest one. Uh,
Okay.
and it's all in first person, which was tough. And I believe it was my first all first person book too. So I had to kind of, rewire the way I thought of things being only in first person, which was tough. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you went from screenwriter to this book.
I went from screenwriter to Eastern Wind.
Oh, right. Okay,
Yeah.
which is what we were going to talk about next.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Eastern
So,
Wind, I mean, do you have any more questions about Empire of One, or do you think I've answered them? Because
oh yeah, no, this is great.
yeah,
I
because
know
Eastern
that
Wind. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
just one more question.
Yeah,
The title itself, Empire of One,
yeah,
suggests solitude, sovereignty, and self-rule.
yeah.
What does being an Empire of One mean to you personally at this stage of your life?
Well, I believe, it's that old saying, you come into the world alone, you leave alone.
There you
And
go.
basically, you are who you are, and you're your own empire of one. Like you can accumulate things and buy toys and have trinkets. But at the end of the day, when that big moment comes, you're by yourself. And I think that's why when with my character, the reason I called it Empire of One is he's immortal, but he wants to die. He just wants to die. He's lived enough, and it's torture that he can't, right?
Mm,
And he's that empire unto himself, and he can't befriend people because they don't last. He can't fall in love because they're not gonna, do you know what I mean? So he's that castle on sand, but it won't collapse. He wants it to, but it won't. So he's just that empire of one, that just that one person in that vast desert that just can't escape it because there's no end for him,
right.
right? So that's what that means to me, I guess. You know,
Wow.
kind of a surreal answer, kind of a
No, that's good.
yeah.
That's good. So if the reader's wondering, there you go. You just gave it
Yeah.
an answer.
Tales from the Eastern Wind was a test because I didn't know if I could successfully go from screenwriter to novelist. I didn't know if I could do it because the writing is so different. Um, scripts, you're in present tense and you can only describe what's happening on screen. You can't go into all these wordy descriptions of the leaves flickering off the trees and the cascading scents of this. It's not that. No. Bob walks into a room. Bob takes his typewriter and throws it through a window. Bob has a temper tantrum. I mean, I'm being really rudimentary here, but I'm just saying it's not creative in that aspect. So when I left that industry and I still wanted to write, I had to go back to the little guy, the little boy when I was a kid, when I used to write little short stories and stuff to entertain myself. And I just was wondering if I could get that back.